lovers, Victoria here and you're watching My Books Me. Today I'm going to be doing my second wrap up because I have read another 5 books. So these are books 6 through 10 and these are really no surprise to anyone. Like, let's face it, you all know what books I've read. So let's get into it. So, book number 6 that I read this year is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This book comes out on the 31st of January and I've actually just filmed a video review for this book that will be going up at that time. So go check that out when that is up, and I'll be talking about it more then. But simply, this is about this really magical Caraval performance and just amazing. I give this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. You've probably all heard about this book before because everyone is talking about it. It is definitely worth the hype, and go check out my review when it is up later this month. Then the other 4 books are more books in the Rosemary Beach series. These are actually the last 4 books in the Rosemary Beach series. I have officially finished the Rosemary Beach series. This is the last time I'm going to say that. So first we have When I'm Gone, which is book number 10, and this is the first part in Mace and Reese's story. This is following Mace, who is Harlow's sister, and Reese, who has just moved in. I do just want to say straight off the bat, this is major trigger warning for physical and sexual abuse. Literally, the first chapter sees Reese being sexually abused by her father. So heads up. But I definitely think Abby handled it really well in this book. I really loved their relationship. Is like so adorable. We see Mace visiting Rosemary Beach to see his sister, and at that time he meets Reese, who is cleaning his sister Nan's house, and she, because of the sexual abuse, she has a really hard time trusting men, but Mace really wants to help her when she gets injured working in the house. And then Mace finds out that for all her life, Reese has been told she's stupid. Her teachers, her parents have told her she's stupid, and she is under the belief that her brain just does not work, it's not all there. Turns out she has dyslexia, and Mace helps her trying to overcome dyslexia, learning how to read, learning how to write, and things like that. And they just slowly form a relationship from that, and it was so cute. These are my 3rd favourite Rosemary Beach couple. I really enjoyed it, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Then I followed that up with When You're Back, which is book 11 and the second part in their story, and this is when Reese moves to Texas with Mace, and they have to deal with living together and the people in Texas, because we're introduced to a couple of other people who are a little bit because we're introduced to a couple of people in Texas who don't really like that they're together. In this book we also focus on Reese finding her biological father, which sets up for the final 2 books in this series. There is a chapter in here that really turned how the Rosemary Beach series is. There's a chapter in here that I wasn't expecting Abby to do in these books, and it sets up for the final 2 books in the series, which was so interesting, and it was really good. And obviously these characters got a happy ending because that's what these books are all about. Again, 5 out of 5 stars. Then moving on to book 12, and this is a standalone within the series, and that is The Best Goodbye. This is following River Captain Kipling and Rose Henderson, although that is not really her name. River is Blair's brother, and he's in Rosemary Beach because he is in Rosemary Beach setting up a restaurant for his boss, who is the neighbor of Mace's parents. So we get introduced to him in the previous books. And he is setting up this restaurant. He's determined to get out of town as soon as it's done because his dream is to open up a bar, a waterfront bar in some little fishing village. And he's determined to get out of town, especially after he's hooked up with Elle, who is the head server. She's quite a bitch, and he's determined to get out of town until he meets Rose, who reminds him of his dead girlfriend Addie, and he starts having these nightmares about her because whenever he's reminded of Addie, he gets these nightmares. Addie was murdered by his insane mother when they were 16 years old. So for the past 10 years he's been trying to numb the pain of losing Addie by a different job before he got into the restaurant business. But I don't really want to spoil what that was because it's interesting. But Addie really reminds, Rose really reminds River of Addie, and yeah, it's really, really good. I give this one 4 out of 5 stars. And then finally, the last book is Up in Flames, which is book number 13, and this is Nan's story. We follow her having a relationship with Major Colt, who is Mace's cousin, and he's gotten into the business that River was in, so these last 2 books really felt different from the rest of the series, but when Major is also playing around with other girls and Nan sort of has her heart on the line, she goes to Vegas to get away from it all, and she ends up meeting this guy called Gannon, and he is completely different to what she's ever really been with. He's very strong and powerful, kind of dangerous and fearful, and very dominant, slightly abusive, and after about a week she's like in love with him. Despite the fact that, as I said, he's very dominant, she's very, very, very submissive to the point where he pretty much sort of rapes her at one stage. Because when she goes back to Rosemary Beach, she starts having these dreams about him. And it turns out, it turns out it's actually him coming into her house at night and having sex with her while she thinks she's asleep. So yeah, borderline rape in a court of law. And things happen. This book felt very cut off from the rest of the series. Nan felt like a very different character in some parts it felt very Nan-esque, but in other parts so wasn't. Her relationship with Gannon I didn't like. I was going into this book thinking it was probably going to be Major that ended up with her, and I really wanted it that way, but Major's story went in a completely different direction that I sort of didn't like. I felt like I just didn't like where his story went because it affected every character who's connected to Major, and I didn't like that. I felt like, as I said, Nan was a completely different character. I did not like her relationship with Gannon at all. At times it was off, and the more I read it, the more I didn't like it, and I noticed how, like, she was just so eager to please him and just do what he said, despite the fact that it was so abusive, and as I said, it was borderline rape in parts, but she went along with it anyway. She was in love with him, and shit goes down, and she gets a happy ending, which I'm happy about, because Nan throughout the entire series has been a bitch that just can't, you know, doesn't have anyone, that everyone sort of abandoned her, so I'm happy she got her happy ending. But at the same time, I just didn't like how we got there. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like I might cut it back down to 3.5. I don't really know. I'm sort of, the fact, I liked some parts, but then some parts I didn't. It's really hard to explain, but I felt this book, and especially The Best Goodbye, they were both very cut off from the rest of the series because they just had a different tone to them with what was happening, and I don't know, they were just very different. I don't really know, but anyway, so yeah, 4 or 3.5 stars, I'm not quite sure. So they're the next 5 books that I've read this year. That makes 10 so far. I read 10 in about 14 days. How crazy is that? That is crazy. As I said, I've got a review for Caraval going up at the end of the month. I'm actually planning on also doing a Rosemary Beach series talk video, probably within the next week, so stay tuned for that if you are interested in knowing my thoughts about the series as a whole and just going over the series like that. But yeah, I can't believe I've read 10 books already. I can't believe I finished a 13 book series in 2 months as well. That's insane. And now I don't really know what to do. You know that feeling when you've just been so immersed in a series for so long that it comes to an end and you're like, how do I live my life now? I'm kind of feeling like that, but hopefully I'm trying to get back. I'm trying to keep reading because I'm worried that I'm going to fall into a reading slump because I finished these books, or I'm worried that I'm going to start rereading them again when I have a lot of other books to read. But anyway, let me know in the comments below your thoughts on any of these books if you've read them. And I promise this is the last time, except for the series talk video, that I talk about the Rosemary Beach books. It won't be the last time I talk about Abby Glines because I'm now moving on to the Seabreeze books and then the Vincent Boys duology. I'm obsessed with Abby now. Definitely a great new adult author. So that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon with another video. Bye!